On this episode of Road Dirt TV, we chat with Peter Lloyd Jones, noted moto journalist and writer for the last 30 years. You're in for an entertaining discussion. Stay tuned. This Road Dirt presentation is brought to you by Law Tigers, motorcycle lawyers. Find them at lawtigers.com. Hey, this is Rob with Road Dirt, and we are joined by Peter Lloyd Jones, a noted writer and moto journalist for some 30-odd years now. If you've ever picked up a motorcycle magazine, publication, during that time period, over these last 25, 30 years, at some point, you've read one of Peter's columns or you've read one of his biker gear reviews. And so I've been reading, Peter, your stuff for probably the better part of 25 years or so now. I think I first became acquainted with your writings in the early 2000s, and mainly through magazines like Motorcyclist and Cycle World. And I always appreciated your bike and gear reviews, but what I enjoyed more was your storytelling. And so I'm happy to have you on the broadcast here, man. Thanks for joining me for a few minutes.
Hey, thank you very much. Yeah. And as you might guess, I enjoy the storytelling more than the writing about the stuff.
Yeah. Stories are just much more engaging. They're personal. People connect over stories, and we try to couch a lot of what we do on Road Dirt on roaddirt.tv, even if it's bike and gear evaluations, in the context of story. I'm like you, man. I find that much more engaging. In reading your book, and Peter Lloyd Jones has a wonderful book out that we've been pushing on our site and our media called The Bad Editor. Collected columns and untold tales of bad behavior. And we picked up a copy. I appreciate it. And I thoroughly enjoy it. I actually read it through twice and just really enjoy it. I learned something new about you that I guess I didn't know, that before you were a writer, you were a rider, but you were a racer too. You managed race teams and things like that. Let's go back even earlier. How did you first discover motorcycling as a young man? Or like a friend of mine says, did motorcycling kind of discover you?
Well, in high school, the group of people I hung out with, one of them, two of them was a motorcyclist. And all he did was talk about bikes. And we're like, bikes. What the hell? Jeez, it's just, fine. Bikes are okay, but, there's more to life. And then, one day it was like early March, and this is in Syracuse, New York. So it was a rare, warmish day. And we stopped at a donut place, and he was driving, and a motorcycle went by, and he ran out the door and he drove away. And we're like, well, what the hell is that? And then he came back like half an hour later, goes, oh yeah, I caught up with the guy and we had a chat. It was great, and we're like, what about us? He's like, yeah, whatever. So eventually it stuck, despite my fighting against it. I was really a car guy growing up. Watkins Glen was only like 70 miles away. I went to Formula One races.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I was in the Niki Lauda era when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
So that was an incredible time. And then in college, I went to school in Florida because I hated winter. So I went to University of South Florida, and I got a bike to commute on until it broke. Well, I kind of broke it.
Not you, man.
Well, it was a two-stroke, and it would rev wildly out of control when I would come to a stop, and I didn't know what was going on. And it had a kill button on the handlebar, and I'm holding the thing in, and the RPMs would slow down, but they wouldn't stop. And so I'd put it in gear and hold the brake on and drop the clutch. I was doing everything just to get it to stop running.
Right.
Yeah. So I broke the transmission doing that. But years later, I realized the problem was the carburetor is inside the bottom cases, it being a two-stroke.
Yeah.
And the carburetor was leaking. And so if the engine's spinning, it's sucking air. And if the carb's leaking in the cases, it's sucking fuel. So there you go.
Recipe for explosion.
Yeah, I didn't understand why, I was a four-stroke guy also. And then I came back from college, and then I started getting motorcycles. But I was a museum director before I went road racing.
Oh, cool.
And they thought
you alluded to that in the book. Cool.
No, I don't think I did. And they thought it was a little weird, but I was working like a maniac. So they're like, well, let's let him do his thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because the museum was just in desperate straits.
Yeah.
And the buildings were falling in, and I figured out how to write grants, and I got funding for restorations, and I figured out how to match the funding and matched it and completed the projects. So they're like, wow, we can't keep up with this guy. So the fact that he's going road racing all the time, well, we're just going to let it go. So
how did you get into road racing? Tell me about that. That was a cool part of the story. As I read the book and everything, I didn't know about you. Tell me about the road racing. Was it just kind of a natural progression of street riding to just wanting to go all out on a track?
Well, yeah, the problem was I was going all out on the street.
On the street.
So there was a group of guys that I would go to the races in Loudon, New Hampshire. And this was before, this is in the early 80s, the original track, Breyer Motorsports. And we wouldn't take the interstate. We would go across the bottom of the Adirondacks and then cross into Vermont and go through the mountains over to New Hampshire. And, always, hell-bent on election.
Over the mountains, man.
Yeah. And then, a couple of years where a few of us are saying, we ought to go road racing. And Keith Code's school was there. I took it in 84, I think it was.
Yeah.
And finally one winter, we said, okay, let's all get together and have a meeting, and because we're going to go road racing, And so we had a meeting, and everyone backed out of it except for two of us.
Oh,
so I was, over 30 years old before I went road racing. So two of us, we only got one bike. We didn't know what we were doing. And we just wanted to go endurance racing. We were both dead set on endurance racing. So one bike seemed fine.
Yeah.
The fact that nothing matters more to someone starting out racing than track time hadn't dawned on us. So we had to split, share practice. With terrible idea. Get your own damn bike if you're going road racing. But we survived. Although we broke a lot of bones the first year.
A lot of parts, a lot of bones.
Yeah, and we terrified people, they're like, you guys, you're crazy.
Man,
We know it's dangerous. And, we showed up at the dirt track races in Syracuse, and we're both on crutches. We're like, we're going racing. Man. We're going racing again next year. This is great. And people are like, whoa. So, yeah, we did. And then we went endurance racing, didn't have any idea what we were doing. But you get a lot of track time. All right. So we made up.
That's for
we
sure.
made up for sharing a bike. So after a while, like halfway through the season, we figured out how to ride a motorcycle on a racetrack. But we had a slow bike. So the next year, the Honda F2 600 came out. And boy, I felt like I was cheating. I could pass bikes on the straightaway.
That was a beast.
And we had to learn how to go like hell through the corners because our bike was so fast.
Yeah.
So and then I saw how come those guys got all those big stickers and beautiful looking machinery and stuff. So I chased that, and we got Suzuki sponsorship, and we won 3 national championships: medium weight production, medium weight superbike, heavyweight production. And then heavyweight superbike, we finished second.
And this was all in AMA, huh?
No, with the Weir National Endurance
Okay, in
Series.
Wira, yeah.
Yeah. And then in '97, I took the team into AMA.
Okay.
It was the year the 96. I'm sorry, 96 took the team to the AMA. That was the year Suzuki came out with the new GSXR 750. And I made some choices that didn't work out. But at Daytona, there were over 20 factory teams because Japanese superbike riders are there, British superbike,
Oh
world
gosh, yeah.
superbike.
The world comes to
No,
Daytona.
exactly. That was like the end of the world showing up at Daytona. But one of our riders finished 12th. Frank Wilson finished 12th. We felt like we conquered the world. We were first privateer, and
Yeah, that's a great finish for a privateer team.
yeah, back then with all those super bikes, especially. So, but we realized it was a mini one rider endurance. It wasn't a sprint race.
Yeah.
So we knew how to do pit stops. We planned the red flag. We told the riders, if you've been out, if you feel like you've been out a dozen laps, and well, the red flag was a pace car. They wouldn't stop the race. So they did a pace car. So, we thought that all through and told the riders, hey, if you feel like you've been out for a dozen laps, just come down pit lane because we're ready.
Yeah.
If the pace car flag comes out. And totally worked out to our advantage. We would have, we were one lap down from the winner until the final lap of the race. They just nipped us to put us 2 laps down. So it also being only 1 lap down, almost,
still there was a lot of pride in hanging, within the top 15 there as a privateer team. There had to be a lot of pride among you and the guys.
It was huge.
Great achievement.
And then our season went all downhill.
But you peaked out, man. You peaked right there. If you're gonna peak somewhere, Daytona is a great place to peak out.
Yep.
That's for sure.
And then, in doing that, I wrote some freelance stuff because all my time with bikes, I just had a lot of bike thoughts. And I pitched my first story to Cycle World, and they refused it. And then I pitched it to Second Best Motorcyclist, and they bought it. Yeah. And never had another story rejected.
Well, would you say that I'm kind of putting 2 and 2 together here? I hope I'm correct here. That your time of writing proposals for the museum as a curator, trying to elicit funds and things like that, and try to write a compelling argument for the need for that, kind of really, would you say that kind of fueled the ability to write compelling stories about motorcycling? Maybe those years as a museum writer?
No, not at all.
Oh, really? Okay.
Writing a grant is the most painful, driest type of writing there is. You just got to hit all the marks. Nothing funny. Nothing can, it's terrible.
It's about writing the right language and rather than telling a compelling story, huh?
Oh, you got to know all the secret code, what to say, how to say it. The first time I wrote a grant, they have people review it, and you get to see the reviews. Mm-hmm. And I was ready to kill myself. They're like, oh, this reads like it's the first time this person ever wrote a grant. I'm like, oh. Thanks. So I had to figure it out. And but then once I got good at it and I was getting them funded, I still hated doing it. Yeah. So I would write whatever I wanted. I would put all sorts of humor in there when I was writing the narrative parts. And then I'd have to go in and take it all out, and make it serious in the end. But it entertained me, while I was doing it.
Well, it sounds like it was an exercise, even though you didn't get to publish those parts, you'd take that out. It was an exercise in what would pay off later as a motorcycle journalist and a writer in the industry here,
Well, it probably helped me get sponsors for the motorcycle team because, as museum director, you're always chasing money. And as a racing team owner, you're always chasing money. And I got really suckered into it because, when we think about, I had a money deal for tires, in like unlimited tires,
Yeah.
And, I had bikes from a major manufacturer and a parts budget and other money deals. And altogether, at the last few years, I had like 175,000 or more in sponsorship.
Nice.
But it costs like 190 at
To
least
to race.
to
Yeah.
do it. Yeah.
Support a
So
team. Yeah.
I'm paying out of my pocket to try to keep the team going, and then selling off the bikes and trying to get back to zero before the next year. I mean, when we stopped racing after 86, it was like another 5 years I was paying off the debts. I think a lot of the team thought I was making profit off of this, because I couldn't pay the riders, but I supplied them with bikes for sprint racing also whenever I could, and they got to keep any of their contingency.
So you, in a lot of ways, you were like a small business owner, because so many times small business owners pay their people and have to keep the business going and make very little that they actually take home and live off in the end.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And that's the thing. It was a business when, because the co-founder, Tim Taylor of our team, decided he just wanted to go racing. He didn't want to deal with a team in a national series. So I just kept doing that. And I was a dictator. I was the lead. And you have to have that on a racing team. And I saw other teams, they're like best buddies, and they start a team. And then halfway through the season, you see the tools flying and them screaming at each other. Never happened in my pit, because there was one dictator that ruled the whole thing. And
set the pace, literally and figuratively.
Yeah, and I remember one day the riders, they started calling my crew chief Dad. Hey, Dad, can I do this? Or Dad, what do you think about that? And I'm like, well, I should be Dad. How come you're not calling me Dad? I want to be loved. And then I realized, no, that wasn't my position.
That wasn't your role.
He was Dad. I was the mean ass uncle, that.
Yeah, you were the uncle.
Yeah, and that's what you had to do. And there was one guy who was trying to rip me off, and I stole his scooter at Daytona because he wouldn't pay me for almost $200 that he owed me. And so he came over to the garage threatening me, and man, everybody in my garage jumped between him and me.
Your crew.
Like, wow, I'm not Dad, but this is okay.
Yeah, your boys got your back, man. I want to talk a little bit about the book. When I got the book, of course, Peter's book is divided into a collected columns and then a section, Untold Tales of Bad Behavior. And there were, of course, the collected columns are from a lot of your early writings with Sport Rider, Motorcyclist, and others like that. And the thing I really enjoyed in reading some of those columns again that I read years ago, and some of the ones I hadn't read before, is that what makes you a great writer is the fact that you're both entertaining and you're thought provoking, and that's not very common among writers. And you have both of those qualities, and I really enjoy that in your book.
I appreciate it.
One of the things I'm going to share with our viewers here. One of the things I shared in my article on it was one of your chapters is called Give Me Them G's. And this is just a good example of, to me, of the one I found most memorable of entertaining writing that's also thought-provoking, where he says, quote, thinking back over my life's experiences with speed, I'm beginning to realize that it's not so much the ultimate top speed reach that makes me all giggly inside. It's more the speed at which that speed is reached. It isn't so much the going fast that speed freaks like me desire. It's the getting too fast as quickly as possible that we can't resist. It's not the fast, it's the going faster fast. It's an easy thing to get confused about, no? So speed freaks might be an incorrect appellation. It should be better G freaks. And I just found it made me smile, but then I thought, yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way, but because I'm kind of a bit of a speed freak, but what am I really? Do I enjoy just blasting along top speed, or do I enjoy the climb to top speed? And I think I'm with you on that. I think I enjoy the climb to top speed, and that was the thing that the book is that's very exemplary of what I found in the rest of the book. Is something I go, oh, that's cool. Oh my gosh, that's true. And
I appreciate that. That's great. That's great.
So,
well, one thing I probably mentioned this in one of those stories. That I realized road racing, when you're going 150 miles an hour down a straightaway, even like in a pack of motorcycles, they're all going the same speed you're going.
Right.
And so there's not a lot of sensation of speed even happening. And then the other thing is, if you're trying to pass one of them and you're not going fast enough, you're going too slow. So again, you know, the sensation of speed is like, all you're thinking is, I'm going too damn slow. Can't get by this guy. So, you know, it's all relative. But the thing about acceleration, you feel it.
Yeah, that's for sure.
It. You know, whether you're alone or there are people around or what, you are feeling it big time.
Yeah, you feel the G's on acceleration, and that's because once you get up to 150 miles an hour on a long stretch, your body's caught up with the bike. But it's the speed to get there.
Yeah,
that I agree. I think is the real rush. And
then if you go to an extreme, like Doug Myers, who's done a lot of time at Bonneville Salt Flats. I think he's retired from it now. But when I set a land speed record over 200 miles an hour, it was within a 1 mile distance. And so the speed was just at the lights themselves.
Yeah.
The whole way there, all I'm doing is accelerating, which is what a drag racer does too. It's all acceleration. And as Doug pointed out to me, the big difference with Bonneville is at Bonneville, you live with the speed.
Yeah.
It's 5 miles.
You get up to speed and then you're on it until you hit the last lights.
I mean, you got 1 mile until the first set of lights, which is where the timing begins, and they time each mile separately. So you've got 4 miles that they're timing, and your speed is going to be climbing through the second mile for sure. And generally by the third mile, everyone, you know, unless you're trying to go 400 miles an hour, you know, you've reached terminal and you're just trying to keep it there.
Yeah.
But it's amazing because it's a surprisingly violent experience at Bonneville because you're going through car ruts and you're losing traction. It looks like a wedding cake and it feels like a wedding cake and it has the traction probably of a wedding cake because it's just salt. Yeah.
That's insane, man.
So you're fun with the bike, and I won't go into all that, but I had a way more exciting experience than it was supposed to be. But you get to the end. I'm sorry?
I was going to say my favorite portion of the book, about halfway through the book, I sent you an email and just said, man, I'm enjoying it. And I've gotten through the first section, getting ready to begin the next. And you emailed me back saying, thanks so much. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the second part even more. And when I did, the Untold Tales of Bad Behavior, I really did enjoy that more because that was almost like a peeling back the veil and sticking your head in and looking around at what the life of a moto journalist was really like back in those heady days of motorcycling in the 90s and early in the 2000s. And, I was pretty fascinated by that. One of the sections in it, one of the chapters in there, when it talks about bad behavior, misadventures, not all of that is your bad behavior and misadventures. I'm letting the cat out of the bag here. Some of that is brand representatives, other journalists and riders and racers you encountered. It's a fun romp, in the second half of the book. And one of the things you say in it, one of the chapters is, a manufacturer's media liaison once told me a certain motor journalist was no longer welcome at his brand's introductions because that journalist had said, in reference to one of the bike's brands, quote, This is the worst handling motorcycle I've ever ridden, end quote. I acknowledge that saying that was improper, though I privately knew the bike was the worst handling motorcycle I had ever ridden. But there are ways to express shortcomings without canceling the relationship. That right there was a great statement. There are ways to express shortcomings without canceling the relationship. Our world needs that phrase right now, big time, in cancel culture and everything. But you go on and say, that said, since I'm not mentioning brands, I wish you had, but I understand why you didn't. If that bike isn't the worst handling motorcycle of all time, ever, until the earth is consumed by our swelling sun, I do not desire to experience the worst handling motorbike ever made. Just a great statement. But in the middle of that, there's this cool little nugget about there are ways to express shortcomings without canceling the relationship. And that was like, that's a gold nugget in a piece of enjoyable prose.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And I have to give a little history on me writing this. I had more stories of bad behavior of others than myself. And I had to set the book down for a while, for, I don't know, like 6 months, and then pick it back up. And reading through those new stories I had written to get myself back in tune with the project, I realized there's too much anger in here, and I don't like it. This is supposed to be entertaining and fun, and so I fixed the stories that I could fix and make them less angry, and the ones that I was having a hard time with, I set them aside. And then I included more stories of my bad behavior, because I figured if I throw myself under the bus the most to begin with, then it'll all be acceptable. And it put me in a better mood in the writing. So as you know, there might be a second volume.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah, you kind of alluded to that at the end of the book that
well, I've cleared the way with this book to now throw everybody else under the bus a little more.
There you go. I think you've earned the right to drag a few under the bus with you, for round 2.
I was thinking about it the other day, and I'm like, am I going to do that second book? And then I thought, of a couple of the things that I am putting in it, and I'm like, yeah, people want to know these stories.
Oh, yeah. Oh, heck yeah, man. Absolutely.
The problem is, some of the people I'm writing about are still in the industry, and they absolutely will know that it's them I'm writing about. So
don't know it's them, but
others have retired, but
probably at the age where we don't care anymore. It's okay.
Well, in a lot of these stories, like you're seeing, I say in places, the stories I couldn't previously tell. And it's not that I couldn't tell them because I'm ratting everybody out. Because as you just alluded, I don't mention any brands. I don't mention any names. I'm not trying to even a score. Even with these stories I haven't told yet, I'm not trying to even any score. But the thing is, in a motorcycle magazine, you got to write about this stuff. People want to know about this stuff. What about the bikes? What about the new jacket? What about the suspension? And, people want to know about this stuff. So there's just not a lot of room for stories like this. And when I had a column there, I could talk about the lifestyle of motorcycling and get that off my chest. So
that's what in the magazines you wrote in that I used to subscribe to back in those days. Those are what I always went to. I'd go to Keith Code's columns. I'd go to Joe Gresh's columns. I'd go to Peter Jones' columns. And those are what I'd read first. And then I'd go read the other stuff because I'm kind of wired for story myself. So I always enjoyed you guys' storytelling. It seems like now that we're entering in, I know I need to wrap up. I need to let you go here in a minute or so. As we we seem to be we are transitioning almost fully now from a print world in not only in motorcycle journalism, but in, print media as well, into a completely digital age. We're making that shift. How do you see motorcycle reporting changing in these times now? And where do you see it going? Where do you see the future of not only of motorcycle journalism, but of motorcycling in America going? There's so many changes taking place.
That's a really big question.
It's broad. Yeah.
No, I talked to a couple manufacturers and about this. Geez, probably 4 or 5 years ago, not even recently. And I said, this whole thing of inviting media to come to an event and giving them all bikes to ride and hosting them and international introductions. Is this still being done because it's identifiably useful to marketing the products? Or is it just part of habit and romance that this is how it's always been done? And they both said, we've been having meetings to discuss that. And we're wondering if we should be doing this anymore, if the cost is justified. So that part of the relationship might change. And then also, marketing this book has shown me, I thought I knew how to connect with motorcyclists, and I guess I did, because like a dozen different media outlets, it's mentioned in at least a half dozen reviews in different motorcycle publications, great reviews on Amazon. People even love the cover. So if you judge books by the cover, it still passes the test.
It's a cool cover. It's cool art, man, for sure.
I've been shocked at how slow the sales have been. And I'm like, what the hell? And then I was talking to a manufacturer, the only one I know of who admits having the book. and I mentioned this to him, and he says, if you can figure it out, let us know, because trying to sell motorcycles is about the same thing. So it's changing really fast. And the thing is, the money shifted away from the magazines, and the magazines couldn't survive without it. And I would have thought the brands want the magazines, but apparently, no, they didn't think it was worth it. So as you can see, 90% of, maybe the magazines, motorcycle magazines in the USA are gone.
They're gone, man. They're either trying to figure out what digital looks like, or like American Iron, they just close their doors and says, we're done, goodbye.
Yeah. Yeah. And some, like when Bonnier bought all the titles.
Yep.
And they had Motorcyclist and Cycle World. Everyone's wondering, well, when are they going to cancel one of those two titles, because they compete with themselves? Mm-hmm. And 7 titles gone since
they buy them and kill them. It's crazy.
Company brought them all together in print. 7 print titles gone, and even Cycle World gone. Forget about when Motorcyclist is going to go. Cycle World is gone in print. They all still have websites.
Yeah.
But then, the influencers, which are getting a lot of attention from the manufacturers, they have nothing anymore. It's totally, I don't know, the manufacturers might still be supplying them with product or even money, but there's nothing there because the algorithms have changed. If you go on Instagram today and try to become an influencer, it's not happening, because Facebook owns it and they decide what the algorithms are going to be. And all the pages on Facebook, if you go look at all maybe I shouldn't be saying this out loud. You go look at the numbers that motorcycle magazines have on Facebook. All those magazines are convinced that, we did that. We got 100,000, 300,000 followers on Facebook. No, they didn't do that. Someone at Facebook purposely went after motorcycle publications so that they could build a source for advertising. Mm-hmm. That anyone who wants to advertise motorcycle products, they can have directed advertising to all these people that they drove to all those websites. And the problem is that those magazines that have those numbers, like 300,000 followers, less than 1% of their followers see what they post, because Facebook is a business. And
the puppet master behind it,
Right. And magazines, they're like, we don't buy ads. We don't buy ads. We sell ads. Mm-hmm. But Facebook is like, well, okay, never mind.
Yeah.
So all those numbers mean nothing. All those followers mean absolutely nothing unless you want to buy an ad and have those followers see your ad. Then you can reach them.
Yeah.
But it's and so yeah, on Facebook, and even with viral. Oh, this video went viral. That's because Instagram decided that video was going to go viral, or Facebook decided it was going to go viral.
Yeah.
Things do not go viral organically. Those days are over.
Mm.
These are businesses, and if you think you're gonna, well, there's one person who's young enough to know better, built their business inside of Facebook, and then was complaining because so few people saw it. And I'm like, well, do you realize you built your business inside somebody else's business? And
Yeah,
that person doesn't like to communicate with me anymore.
pretty interesting, man.
But
Crazy,
anyway,
man.
it's a huge question,
It
and
is.
as you can see, there's a lot of, it's still changing.
It's still rapidly
So,
changing by the day, practically.
yep.
That's for sure.
So
It
I need to mention, I don't know if you like this, but I need to mention, I got a column in Rider magazine now, and it's in print. And I'm like, holy hell, I thought that ship had sunk.
Yeah, for sure.
So Rider
Well,
magazine is going good, and I'm in it. I'm
good
happy.
happy.
I
for
like
you, man.
I like print, and apparently enough other people do. And I don't think print's dead. I think
I hope not,
vinyl,
because I still enjoy it too.
like vinyl, it's going to find its way back.
Yeah, I think so. I hope so. I mean, we're all digital on Road Dirt. We launched in 2019 all digital, but on a personal level, maybe it's my age, maybe it's my background. I love having something in my hands. It's tangible. I still enjoy. I've got a coffee table full of them sitting over here, old magazines and stuff like that, books, tabletop motorcycle books. So I'm with you on that. Well, what's on your plate these days? We'll kind of land the plane, park the motorcycle right here. What's your newest project? What's on your plate these days?
I'm working on a graphic novel that doesn't have a motorcycle in it.
Oh yeah.
What one might appear in a very small way. And I also I lead a secret life. I write scholarly philosophy papers that I deliver at peer-reviewed philosophy conferences at universities. And weirdly, although I hated writing grants, I love writing these papers.
Yeah.
And you have to hit all the marks, but I'm not a philosopher, so I can bend a lot of the rules. And I'm actually published in the Sartre Studies International Journal. So the fact that they published me shows I'm not just wasting air.
Because you don't consider yourself a philosopher. You're not afraid of coloring outside the lines.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
And I get to be more loquacious in my writing than they're allowed to be. So
push the boundaries with them, man, for sure.
And then what else am I working on? Oh, I'm working on a project that I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement for.
I've done a few of those.
Yep. So I can't talk about it.
I understand.
And then I'm working on a book on freedom. Free will, the concept of free will, because there's a movement right now, a lot of people writing about how we don't have free will. And I take the argument that we do. So I'm working on that. And that's a lot of fun. And
you're keeping
what
yourself.
else? What comes after that? Well, and then I'm sorry?
You're still growing, still stretching, still writing. That's good stuff, man.
Oh yeah. And then volume 2, if things go well. But I got a bunch of signings coming up.
Yeah.
New York City at a bike night next Tuesday at Skyline Drive-In, at Hudson Moto Coffee Machine in Hudson, New York on the 31st. And then on the 13th of August, I'll be at the BMW RA Rally, which is 1,500 people, and I'm one of the featured speakers.
Cool, man.
And then I'll be at Mike Seats Cafe Racer event outside of Pittsburgh on the 15th of August. So,
well, best to you, man. I appreciate you joining us and chatting some here a little bit, and I look forward to reading volume 2 as well as your other musings and scribblings as you put those out as well. And enjoy talking with you, my friend.
Hey, I appreciate all your help and your very kind words. Thank you very much.
We appreciate you, brother. This is Rob and Peter with Road Dirt. Ride life.